Hello, welcome to this video. This is 4-2. This is part C, the third video on finding inverses from symbolic form. In the first video, we talked about finding the inverse of linear functions. In the second video, we talked about finding the inverse of quadratic functions, which is square root functions. And then in this video, we are going to talk about the inverses of cubic functions, power of 3. And the inverse of a cubic function is a cubic root function, just like a square root function, okay? But we're taking the third root. All right, so the steps, we'll look at that right meow, are posted here, and they're exactly the same as the first two videos, but you'll notice in step 4, we don't have, or sorry, our old step 4, finding the restricted domain, isn't present. This is because there are no restrictions. No restrictions are needed to make an inverse function for a cubic function and a cubic root function, okay? We don't have to worry about it. So all real numbers is going to be our domain, just like linear functions. Oh, that's nice. I don't have to worry about restrictions. Okay, just some other things of note here. Again, and I said this in the intro, is that a cubic function has an inverse, which is a cube root function. Okay, those are the inverse. So again, just to recap, what we're going to do, we're going to change our function notation to y. We'll switch our x's and y's. We'll solve with algebra, and we'll rewrite in function notation. Without further ado, here is our first example. All right, so we want to find the inverse of this function, and we're going to state the domain in set notation. So again, the very first thing we want to do, change the function notation to y. Y is equal to 0.25 x to the power of 3. I'm going to switch my x's and y's. X is equal to 0.25 y to the power of 3. Okay, so now what I want to do is I want to go ahead and I'm going to divide both sides by 0.25. I'm going to divide this side by 0.25, and we get x divided by 0.25 is equal to y cubed. Okay, got to solve for y. How do I do that? Well, you take the cubic root. I'm going to take the root, and notice the index on this radical is 3. Okay, so that just means we're taking the third root. Okay, so we get y is equal to the cubic root of x divided by 0.25, and this is our inverse function. F inverse of x is equal to the cubic root of x divided by 0.25. Okay, and domain, are there any restrictions on domain? The answer is no. There aren't. Our domain is all real numbers, negative infinity to infinity and beyond. Okay, so that is our domain. Here's our inverse. Now, the other thing I want to talk about this problem, maybe that x being divided by 0.25 is kind of bugging you. It would bug me when I get to this step here. I'm going to rewrite this. X is equal to 1/4 of y cubed, right? Isn't a quarter worth 25 cents? Oh, yes, it is. Okay, so how do you undo dividing by 4 or multiplying by a fourth? Well, you multiply by 4. Multiply by 4. Okay, so I get 4x is equal to y cubed, which means y is going to be equal to the cubic root of 4x. So maybe you think this is prettier. I think it's prettier. I would prefer it like this. Are you gonna dock us on the test if we don't have that? No, I'll just look at you and say you should have this, but this would give you full credit. That's 100% correct. Okay? All right. Next example. Here we go. Find the inverse of the function d of x is equal to 2x cubed plus 10, and we're asked to state the domain of the inverse in set notation. All right, well, I'm going to change from function notation. Y is equal to 2x cubed plus 10. Okay, now I have multivariables. How do you find the inverse? Switch your x and your y. Switch it up. Switch it up. Okay, so 2y cubed plus 10. Okay, now I want to solve. There's a lot going on here, and people often make mistakes in undoing or isolating a variable. So here's PEMDAS. Again, if you're undoing stuff, you work backwards. So I'm going to subtract 10 on both sides. X minus 10 is equal to 2y cubed. Okay, now how do I isolate my y? Well, you got to get rid of the 2 first, right? Undo multiplication division, so you're going to divide both sides by 2. This one I will show you the inverse operation. I'm going to divide everything by 2. What you do to one side, you must do to the other side. A lot of people just kind of think only one thing gets affected by that 2. Okay, so what we have is 1/2 x minus 5 is equal to y cubed. Okay, what's next? Well, you got to undo your exponent. So I'm going to take the cubic root. Take cubic. Okay, cubic root. All right, so what is my answer? I'm going to come up here. Okay, y is equal to the cubic root of 1/2 of x minus 5. Now I want this to be an inverse function, so you have to change to function notation, right? They say function. They don't say equation. They want a function, so put it in a function. Cubic root. Yes, I will dock you on the test if you don't do it. No, I don't care. Okay, so do it. All right. And then domain. They're x's. Okay, what's possible? Anything from negative infinity to infinity, as long as it's real, right? We don't play. Okay, there is your function. I'm getting loopy. Okay, so here's a practice problem. I'd like you to pause the video. Pause it. If you have any questions, write them down so you can ask me when you get into class. Okay, and here are the answers. Pause it. Do it. Did you do it? Good. Here it is. All right. So there's our inverse. And again, notice domain, all real values from negative infinity to infinity and beyond. And here is the last practice one. 2x cubed plus 4. And here's our solutions. All right, so hopefully you got these problems right. Hopefully you feel good about it. The problems really for all of them are the same, this approach, I should say. And the only one that's different is when we have a power of 2, we're going to have to go ahead and state that restricted domain, right? We can't have negative values in the square root. And when we take the square root, we're only going to take the principal, the positive values. All right, so hopefully you like these videos. We've talked about how to find the inverse. You switch your x and your y. Solve for y. That's it. All right, I'll catch you next time. Work hard, be easy, be chill. See ya.